Welcome to the athletic approach, where we will guide you through the intricate maze of the mind in sports.
The Athletic Approach is brought to you by Culture in Sport, where we believe that culture is critical to long term success. I'm Kristen Banowski.
And I'm Manisha and this is the athletic approach, where we don't just play the game, we understand it.
There's something, so when you were saying that you get like panicky after a performance, but you're not really too nervous before, like how does that come on? Is that when you like allow yourself to realize, hey, everyone was just watching me? Because usually I would think like someone beforehand would be like, so, everyone's about to be watching me, and that's when they get anxious. But then you said you get nervous, like you panic or whatever afterwards. And I was kind of wondering why that happens.
I don't even know. Like, I still get nervous beforehand, and I hold that in me whilst like during the performance. But then
Hmm.
I also believe that I'm in a state of flow
Yeah.
when I'm performing because all I can do, like muscle memory takes over with the choreography. I'm listening to the music, and I'm just enjoying it, but I'm still very nervous. And I think I think some of it is just relief, like it's done.
Hmm.
But then it's also not knowing what's just happened. Like, did I look good? Did
Yeah.
I look bad? What, like, and it's like I don't know what's also just happened, but I know that
Hmm.
everyone was watching me. And I also think it's really interesting because
Are you
whenever
are you
I,
nervous that you
whenever
can't tell, like if you don't know right away if it was good or bad?
I think so, but like it's so weird because if I've made a mistake and I know I've made a mistake, I
Hmm.
am less likely to have a panic attack after. Bizarre, really bizarre. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But if I've done it and it's gone perfectly,
Uh-huh.
after I have like this, like just this panic attack, I just I don't know why it's and I don't get it. I really don't because but then I don't know if it's because if I've made a mistake and I know I've made a mistake, I'm aware of it
Hmm.
and it's happened and I
Yeah.
can't do anything about it. So I don't know if something within that is probably, going through my head, but it's
Yeah, it's
just
almost like you've
yeah,
accepted if something's gone wrong, you're like, "Oh, well, it happened." But you finished a performance that you think is good, and then maybe you second guess yourself like, "Oh, maybe it wasn't good," or like
yeah,
maybe someone saw something and I didn't know it, and that would be worse than recognizing that you've done something wrong.
exactly.
Oh man.
100%. Yeah, I know. I think I've spoken to so many people about this and it's still just like I don't know what's going on.
No,
But
yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting. Like I I can definitely like I get so nervous before I go. I've gotten a lot better control of it, and I've seen a performance improvement from getting control. Like there were times where right before the line I couldn't like stand up. I was bent over as if I was going to throw up all the way until I walked to the line. And
Wow.
definitely bringing that down a bit has improved my performances. Um, but usually I feel a great sense of relief once it's done. Like if it's gone absolutely horribly, like if I've done something really bad, I'm upset with myself. But for the most part, there's like a sense of relief. Like it's like I'm constantly reproving my to myself that I can do this, and like I've done it,
Mm,
even if it wasn't perfect. I'm like, okay, you reminded yourself you could do this.
yes, yes. And kind of as you say, like that sigh of relief,
Hmm.
I feel like that's what I experience at the same time, but it's so outward, it's so like oh like I don't know. But then it's that mix of knowing that I've just been watched. It's yeah, it's bizarre, but I think it's funny because with dance, everyone is looking the same on stage. So the only way that you can stand out, well, you can stand out obviously in a good way, dancers often will, um, but you will stand out in the wrong way if you don't look the same as everyone else. So if you go wrong,
Yeah.
then that's again, it's another thing. Despite everyone, wanting to look the same, you can easily be picked out if you went wrong than if you were the best dancer on stage. But then it also depends on who the audience is looking at, because there's always so many of us on one stage. But then with solo performances, you you can't go wrong because you can just freestyle because it's your own thing. You're not copying anyone
Yeah.
else. It's so hard to go wrong.
Yeah, I feel as though the worst thing you could do is just freeze up and just stand there. Like as long as you kept moving.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because if you've choreographed a piece for only you to perform and it didn't go right, no one will know it went wrong
mhm. Yeah,
because they don't know the
exactly.
choreography.
Right. Yeah,
And
and
it,
it's only
yeah,
you judging yourself that would make you worry or whatever. Like no one, very few people in that room have a clue what it's supposed to look like.
exactly. And I think that's where dance is so like subjective when you compare it to other sports, because obviously in bobsleigh, like you will know if it's not right. Like
Hmm.
there's no kind of subjectivity to it.
Hmm. Yeah, well, it's a
And
timed sport versus like a scored sport, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I've always struggled with like scored sports, I think. And things like gymnastics and that, like it, or diving, they're beautiful sports, but it's got to be so frustrating to compete in them sometimes.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And then it depends on who the judges are. It depends
Hmm.
what their background is, and it's so complex,
Yeah.
so complex. But definitely fascinating because, it doesn't come down to you as a performer, because sometimes we've had judges where one judge will score like 20 marks lower than the other two judges on average. And it's like, but
Do they have a
it
way,
all
like in
comes
the
down,
Olympics, they have it where they take out the highest and the lowest scores now, so they try to avoid uh like people low
oh,
balling or whatever to try and get another team a higher score.
no, that's not a thing. So it's just a total amount of points for each team, and whoever's got the highest goes, um, which is, yeah, not great, but yeah, but then it depends on the experience of the judges. Sometimes there's a
Hmm.
judge that is solely musical theatre, or there could be a judge that's more ballet. There could be another judge that's more hip hop or commercial, but it doesn't always mean like the same scores will come up. It also depends on personal preference
Yeah,
sometimes
for
as well.
sure.
Like if you enjoyed a performance more than the others, sometimes it's the obvious ones. Um, but it's all kind of broken down into different things like costume, choreography, performance, musicality. Um, there's usually another one as well. But with that in itself, being a choreographer, you choreograph a piece, but you after that you can't control anything, and it's up to what the dancers do on stage. And I experienced that for the first time. I think it was last year, the year before, when I choreographed this piece for the dance show, and I was watching it, and I'm like, I am so nervous because I've
Hmm.
done everything that I can, and now it's out of my control from like from a choreographer coach perspective, because I can't do anything, like I can't make the dancers dance in a way anymore, like
Yeah.
it's up to them.
Do you have the same kind of reaction? Like how do you're obviously nervous for them, but do you like feel panicked after their performance?
No, no, not at all, not at all. It's no, which no, I think it's because I'm not being watched. So I think it's that
That's
element of, yeah, like yeah, because I'm kind of behind the scenes of it, so I'm not being
Hmm.
watched. My choreography is, but I'm not. So yeah, so
That's so
yeah.
interesting
Have
that
you
you draw the
ever?
line because you think that the choreography is like an extension of you, right? So it's still you being
Yeah,
watched. I don't know. Sorry, what were you
yeah.
gonna?
I know it's no, it's mad. Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, have you ever felt like you were in that position where like you might have mentored someone or coached someone, and now it's like up to them, and then you know, seeing
Yeah,
what happens.
um like I've done a little bit of coaching and also just even watching people I care about compete. Like it doesn't have to even be someone that I've coached. I can really empathize and I get very nervous for them, like watching my boyfriend race, watching my
Mm,
brother, he does track and field, watching him throw. And then also like I was coaching some kids last summer and when they would go and do testing, I would just get very part of it's the testing atmosphere because that just gets me nervous in general, but yeah, but just yeah, caring a lot about another person's performance comes pretty easily to me.
yeah, no, and I think it's so easy to, and again, it's because you can't do anything
Hmm.
else to help them, and it's that thing of like it's in their control now, and
Yeah.
whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, it's really hard sometimes like um to give up that control and even in your own life recognize that you like what you is and what is out of your control. Like something I really struggled with as a brakeman was not getting worked up about how other girls were training, especially in a time of social media when everyone's posting like their lifts and their sprint workouts and stuff on social media, and you're like, oh my gosh, they look great, they're going to be so fast this year. And that really that all that does is bring me down.
Yeah,
Putting those that negative energy myself and worrying about someone else, and their how they perform is going to be completely out of my control. And I would find myself wasting so much time and getting so anxious about other girls who I was up against.
yeah, yeah. No, that's quite interesting. It's funny that with dance, sometimes it's like, again, because of the subjectivity, it all depends on which teams are competing with which other teams, because some teams that would be first could be last depending on who they're competing against, because they can
Mm-hmm.
get other teams can get higher points. And we often use social media to kind of check like, oh, like what, where did they place, or is there
Mm-hmm.
any clips of their like choreography, and or like is that their costumes, or what are our costumes going to look like? And it is that, and it's just social media is just it has its pros and cons, but it's out of your control. And I think understanding that you can only sort of deal with and manage things that are in your control and no one else's,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't change you like you literally have no choice in controlling the uncontrollables, because you can't do anything about it. So trying to focus your energy on what you can control is such a huge thing in itself as well.
And I think that's a like a nice thing to say, and I completely agree with it, but putting it into practice is so hard for me.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
just like let go of the things that you're like, I have no say over this. I have no say over the coach's decision. I have no say over this other girl. I have no say over what someone's going to post or someone's opinion. Um, it's really hard to be like, hey, instead, I'm going to double down on these things that I can control. And that can work for a
yeah,
minute, but like those things just like to creep back into your head, all these other,
yeah,
uh, I guess, things that you're concerned about, or yeah.
yeah. No, absolutely. And that's where it's so important to create those habits to make sure that you don't fall back into those things. But then it's also like okay if you have like ups and downs and things like that, because it's not a straightforward
Hmm.
thing when you're trying to, you know, manage any stresses that you're going through. Um, but yeah, but it's yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah. Um, you had mentioned before, like letting anxiety take over your whole life. And this kind of goes with the control thing too. My first year of full-time training for being a bobsleigh athlete, I made myself so anxious about nobody actually. It was just the worry of someone who was going to come into the program and take my spot. And to the point where I got myself so sick that I was hospitalized. Um, with a really bad ear infection, and then I had like vertigo. Um, and I lost a ton of weight because I was not sleeping and just anxious all the time of this fictitious person who was going to come in and be so much better than me. And so
Mm,
it's like the combination of both things we were kind of talking about was like the anxiety that took over my life and just constant focusing on things that I had literally no control over, but they were just plaguing
mm.
my mind.
Yeah. And it's trying to manage that is difficult because
Mm-hmm.
even though it's not in your control, it still affects you.
Yeah. And like the honestly, like over the years and being in the sport more and finding more value in myself and my and also a lot of confidence came from my teammates and the way they made me feel valued. I've like grown out of it a little bit, but honestly the only way to like in bobsleigh at least or in sports where it's very just your strictly your physical performance, the only way to really like overcome it is like to put yourself in a position where you're not so replaceable, you get your physical skills, your what you contribute to the team. There's a whole list of things to bring those skills up to a level that where you don't always feel like a brand new person can replace you. That was honestly the
Yeah.
only thing that really helped.
Wow. So what are some of the things that you feel like you've done to try and like maintain that?
Um, I feel like I have a lot less stress over it now, and I'm more at peace with my position. I've also like I've been fortunate enough to achieve a lot of my goals in sports so far. So if someone said to me tomorrow, we're not going to support you anymore and you'll never bobsleigh again, I would be hurt, but it wouldn't be the end of the world to me. Where if you asked me a year ago or 2 years ago how I'd react to that, it would devastate me. Um, I have a much healthier relationship and with with sport and achievement, and I don't know if it came from I think it came from going through a lot of struggles in this sport and coming out the other side and realizing that I was okay. Uh, and yeah, I've built a lot of resilience and tolerance to things that have happened in the sport.
Mm. And resilience is such an important thing within itself. Like if I feel like I think we've spoke about this before, like it's good to have high challenge but also
Mm-hmm.
high support. But
Mm-hmm.
if you've got high challenge and low support, then it's not gonna
I
work.
I
If
completely agree with that. I feel like the closer I became with my teammates, with my boyfriend, with purposes outside of sport, the more comfortable I became with my position in sport because I wasn't so afraid to lose sport because I have so many other things, whether it's my support system or other things I'm working on, that in the back of my mind, it's like it's not the end of the world if sport ends.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good because especially, things like retirement
Mm-hmm.
and things when they come around, at least you feel confident within yourself that you know how to then better manage this. And I think that's like literally so important for every athlete
Yeah.
to
I
kind of
would
come
say
to
like
terms with.
yeah, and having gone through a phase where literally all I felt like I was capable of focusing on was training and recovering and everything to do with sport. I think it made me such a more well rounded person and a more resilient person when I started developing interests and hobbies and things that I loved outside of the sport, which is so funny because it's like your resiliency in sport is developing yourself outside of sport.
Yeah, no, it's good because it forms your identity
Hmm.
because you're not putting pressure on you're not putting pressure on what happens in the sport defines you and your
Yes.
self-worth.
Hmm.
And that is like that is the way to end this podcast. That is like the cherry on top. Because your sporting achievements doesn't define you as an individual and your own self-worth because you are much more of a person outside of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think that that would be something that is really important to share, especially with younger athletes who have big, lofty goals and feel like they need to devote their entire life to achieve them because you being well rounded is going to help you to be more resilient and to bounce back if things don't go your way. And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Athletic Approach. We hope you gain new insights into the mental dimensions of sport performance and are inspired to dive deeper into this fascinating field.
The Athletic Approach is produced by Manisha and Dr. Jeremy Piasecki at Culture and Sports.
If today's discussion sparked your curiosity and you want to learn more, head over to cultureandsports.com. We've got a wealth of resources, articles, and research to help you understand the mental game even better.
And don't forget, you can also connect with us on your favourite social media platforms. Whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, or YouTube, you can join our community for more insightful discussions, expert tips, and a behind the scenes look at the world of mental sports performance.
Remember, the mind is a powerful tool in any athlete's training. The more you understand it, the better your game. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing your limits.
Thank you for tuning in to The Athletic Approach, where we go beyond the physical and explore the psychological. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, and embrace the mental game.